Hey guys, here's your guys' help video on your guys' practice exam. Okay, so just gonna model these problems for that you guys can, do well for the upcoming exam. So I'm gonna have the notes right here so that we can kind of, decipher like which strategy we got used with the help of our notes, so that hopefully you guys study and you guys will be good for the test. So here we have number one. And for number one, first of all, we can't factor something out from each term, so no GCF. So we should look at how many terms there are, which there are three. So if we look at our notes, there's three options for three terms. A equals 1, A greater than 1, or U sub. So this one is definitely an A is equals to 1 because the leading coefficient is 1. So this invokes you guys to do X method. We got 24 up top, negative 11 on the bottom, and the two numbers that multiply to 24, but when you add it, gives you negative 11. That's negative 8 and negative 3. And because we know it is A equals to 1, all we gotta do is just use the two side numbers as part of our factors. So X minus 8, X minus 3, so that one would have been A. Number two. Again, cannot factor out any GCF, so we should look at how many terms there are. There are three. So again, this is A equals 1, A greater than 1, or U sub. And this one is another A is equals to 1. And since we know A is equals to 1, then we just do our X method, and we just use our two side numbers to figure out what two numbers multiply to negative 24. But when we add it, give you positive 2, and it's going to be negative 4 and 6. So one useful strategy is to try to figure out your guys' factors of negative 24, right? Because if you guys can figure out the factors that give you negative 24, then it will help you guys to decipher which one adds up to 2. So it's going to be negative 4 times 6. So then since it's A is equal to 1, you guys just use the two side numbers as part of your factors. X minus 4, X plus 6. Which for this one, it would have been A. Okay, so can't factor something out from each term, so no GCF. So there's three terms, and it looks to be A is greater than 1. So that means you gotta do X method along with the grouping method. So when we make our X method, 3 times 2 gives you 6, and 7 gives you the bottom, right? So we should think of all our factors of 6, and the combination where multiply to 6, but when we add it gives you 7, that's 1 and 6. Now, because we know it's A is greater than 1, that means we need to group this by using our 4 terms. And if you forgot, it's basically this, but then this 7x is a combination of the two middle terms. So 3x squared plus x, 1x, right, plus 6x plus 2. And then we do our grouping. We can factor out an x from both of these, and we can factor out a negative 2 from both of these. So we'll get 3x plus 1, negative 2 times 3x plus 1. They both match, so our factors are x minus 2 and 3x plus 1. Which is going to be... Wait, did I do that correctly? Ooh, sorry. This should have been a positive 6, so we're just dividing out a positive 2. Yep, just a positive 2. So that's going to be positive 2, so that's going to be D. That will be D. Number 4, can't factor out something from each term. So again, this is going to be an A is greater than 1 case, right? Which means you got to do X method and then you got to group, right? So 7 times negative 6 is negative 42 and negative 11 on the bottom. So again, it's good to think of all the factors of 42, right? Because it'll help you guys weed out what are your options. And when we look at this, well, the only combination that will give us 11 is 3 and 14. But one of these has to be negative because a negative times a positive will give us a negative 42. And since we add up to negative 11, that means the 14 better be negative. But again, since a is greater than 1, we gotta do grouping. So we gotta write the first term, the two middle terms, and your guys' last term, which is minus 6. Group. We can factor out an x from here, and we can factor out a negative 2. You could divide each of them by negative 2. So we're going to get 7x plus 3 for that one. Factor out negative 2, 7x plus 3. Factors x minus 2 times 7x plus 3, which is going to be a. Which is going to be a. But the important thing is for you guys to identify your strategy when you look at it. So for example, number 5. Can't factor out something from each term. I see 4 terms, so that's going to be grouping. That's going to be grouping. So group. We can factor out an n squared from both of these, and we can factor out a 6. So factor out an n squared. We're going to get 7n plus 1. Factor out a 6, 7n plus 1. N squared plus 6, 7n plus 1. Which is going to be D. This is going to be D. Number 6, right? Okay, can we factor out something? Yes, we can divide both of them by 5x, right? So when we take a 5x out from both, from this, we're only have an x. From this, x is canceled, so you just have 4 divided by 5, which is 8. Now, we got 2 terms, but look, if it's 2 terms, difference of squares or sum and difference of cubes. Well, we do not have perfect squares. There's nothing times itself that gives us x or 8, and we don't have perfect cubes, meaning something times itself 3 times over gives us those. So this is an indication we can't do anything more, so this will be our final factor, which is B. Number 7, we can't factor out something from each term, so how many terms do we got? We got 2 terms, so we should be staring at our 2 terms. Now, are these perfect squares or sum and difference of cubes or none, right? These are definitely perfect squares. So that means we need to do our difference of squares. Also, there's a minus sign in between, which only works if it's a minus sign. So, when we do perfect squares, what times itself is 9x squared and what times itself is 16? Well, 3x times 3x is 9x squared and 4 times 4 is 16. Plus and minus. That's going to be A. 8. Okay, so we cannot factor something out from 64 and 27. So we got 2 terms. So we either got perfect squares, perfect cubes, or none. Well, this is definitely the perfect cube scenario. Because I know that something times itself 3 times is 64 used to the third, and something times itself 3 times over is 27. So, since we know we're going to be doing sum and difference of cubes, we should write down our formula, right? A cubed plus B cubed equals A plus B, A squared minus AB plus B squared. So, what's our A? Well, our A is going to be, what is that thing times itself 3 times over is 64u to the third. And that's 4u. And what times itself 3 times over 27? That's 3. 4u times 4u times 4u is 64u to the third. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So we got our A. We got our B. So now just plug it in into the formula. A plus B is 4u plus 3. A squared, which is going to be 4u squared, which is, right, 4u times itself. So 4u times 4u is 16u squared. A times B, well, 4u times 3, that's going to be 12u. And then our B squared, right, that's 3 squared. So 3 times itself, which is 9. And that's going to be C. That is going to be C. Okay. Number 9. So nothing can factor out from each. So we got 3 terms. So is this a equals 1, a greater than 1, or a u sub? This is definitely a u sub because this degree is double of this one, and we need this for trinomials. We need to get this to be a degree of 2. So I know it's confusing because I set u to this at the beginning, so I apologize for that. So we're just going to denote, I'm just going to pretend these are x's for now so that we can use our u sub. So I'm going to pretend u is x to the second k, so then that will give us u squared minus 5u plus 6. And again, apologize that I made those u variables. So when we get to this, right, after we changed it so that now it's u squared minus 4u plus 5u plus 6. Alright, so is this an a equals 1 case or an a is greater than 1? This is definitely an a is equals to 1 case. Which means we use our x method and we figure out our factors of 6. That will give us -5. So it's definitely going to be -2 times -3, because a negative times a negative will still give us a positive, but then a -2 minus 3 will give us -5. And because it's a is equals to 1, we just use our two side numbers as our factors. U minus 2, U minus 3. But again, we did not start off with u's, right? We started off with x's, apparently. So this is going to be... And remember, I changed the variable so that we don't get confused, like substituting u for another u. So because this was in terms of u's, right, it's going to be D. Alright, this one. Okay, is there something you can factor out from each term? No, there is nothing. So, 3 terms, right? So we either got a equals 1, a greater than 1, or u sub. And again, this is another u substitution. So I'm going to substitute in the u for m squared. So we're going to have 2u squared plus 3u minus 20. Now, do we got a equals 1 or a is greater than 1 case? This is certainly as a is greater than 1, which means we got to do x method and we got to do a grouping, right? 2 times -20 is for -40 and a 3. So we got to figure out factors of -40 when we multiply them together is -40, but when we add it gives you a 3. So let's make a -40's factor list. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, and 5 and 8. The only factors that give you a 3 would be 5 and 8, and one of them must be negative because a negative times a positive would give us a negative. And they have to add up to give you 3, so it's got to be the negative on the 5. 8 minus 5 gives you positive 3, -5 times 8 gives you guys -40. But remember, since a is greater than 1, we got to do x method, which is what we just did, and we got to group it. The 4 terms. It here, right? But then the 3u becomes the 5, -5, and the 8. First term, the 2 middle terms, and your last term. And now group. You can factor out a u from both of those, and you can factor out a 4 from both of those. So u times 2u minus 5 plus 4 times 2u minus 5. u plus 4, 2u minus 5. And again, we did not start off with u's in the beginning, we started off with m. So we're going to plug in m squared in for our u's. So our final answer is going to be D. That's going to be our final answer. Number 11. Can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can divide each of these by 5. X squared plus x minus 12. Now, how many terms do we got? We got 3 terms. So is this an a equals 1, a greater than 1, or u sub? This is definitely going to be an a is equals to 1 case because there's a coefficient of 1 in front of the x to the second. So this is just a straight x method, -12 up top, 1 on the bottom, and let's figure out factors of -12. 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, and 4, but one of them's gotta be negative because a negative times a positive will give us a negative 12, and they gotta add up to be 1, so it's gonna be negative 3 and 4. And because, remember, since a is equal to 1, we just use the two side numbers as our factors. X minus 3, x plus 4, which is gonna be b. Number 12. Can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can divide each of these by 2. 7x squared plus 4x minus 3. Okay, how many terms do we got? We got 3 terms. So is this a equals 1, a greater than 1, or u sub? Definitely a is greater than 1. So that means we gotta do x method and our grouping, right? So negative 21 up top, 4 on the bottom. So let's think of all our factors of negative 21. 1 times 21, 3 times 7. Well, the only ones that would work is 3 and 7. And because they gotta multiply to negative 21, one of these must be negative, and when we add it, it gives you positive 4. So then 3's gotta be negative, because 7 plus negative 3 is positive 4. But remember, a is greater than 1, we gotta do grouping. So the first term, the two middle terms, and your last term. Group. We can factor out an x from there, and we can't factor out anything from here, so it's just a 1. X times 7x minus 3 plus 1, 7x minus 3. So we're going to get x plus 1 times 7x minus 3, and don't forget the 2 that we factored out in the very beginning. Which will be what? 2d. Which will be d. 13. Can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can factor out a 4a from both terms. 11a plus 3. Now, we got 2 terms inside the parentheses, but they are neither perfect squares or neither perfect cubes. So that means we can't do anything more, so that's the end of our factor. It's going to be b. 14. So for 14, can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can factor out a 5 from each term. 4x to the third minus 2x squared minus 6x plus 3. Okay, how many terms do we got? We got 4 terms. The only one we can do for 4 terms is grouping. So group. From the first grouping, we can factor out a 2x squared. From the second grouping, we gotta factor out a negative 3. Negative because there's a negative in the front. So 2x squared out of 2x minus 1, negative 3, 2x minus 1. 2x squared minus 3, 2x minus 1, and please don't forget the 5 that we factored out in the beginning. So this one's going to be b. That one's going to be b. Okay, number 15. Can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can factor out a 4. 4m squared minus 9. Okay, how many terms do we got on the inside parentheses? We got 2. Difference of squares or sum and difference of cubes? Definitely difference of squares, because these 4m squared and 9 are both perfect squares, and there's a minus sign in between. So, what times itself is 4m squared? That's 2m times 2m. What times itself is 9? 3 times 3. Plus and minus. D. 16. Can we divide out something from each term? Yes, we can divide out a 2. So, how many terms do we got on the inside of the parentheses? There's 2. So, do we got difference of squares factoring or sum and difference of cubes? Sum and difference of cubes, because u to the third and 125, those are perfect cubes. So, I might as well write down the formula up top. A cubed minus b cubed equals a minus b, a squared plus ab plus b squared. So, don't forget the 2, right? Okay, so what's our a value? So what times itself is u to the third? Well, that's definitely just u, right? U times u times u to the third. What times itself is 125? That is definitely 5. So we got our a, we got our b, so let's just plug it in into the formula. A minus b, that's just u minus 5. A squared, that's for us u squared. A times b, 5 times u, 5u. B squared, which is 5 to the second, 5 times 5, 25. And that's going to be D. That's going to be D. 17. Can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can factor out a 3 from each term, right? So we're going to get 3 times u to the 4th plus 10u squared plus 21. And again, I apologize I used u for these variables, but this is going to be a u substitution, right? So I'm going to pretend these are both x's. Don't worry, it'll be different on your guys' exam. So I'm just going to pretend that u equals x squared. So we got 3u squared plus 10u plus 21. And is this an a equals 1 case or an a is greater than 1? Definitely a equals 1, which means we just use our two side numbers as our factors, right? Factors of 21, 121, 3 and 7. The only combination that works is 3 and 7. And because a equals 1, we just use our two side numbers, right? U plus 3, u plus 7. But again, we start off with something different besides the u's. And we get that, which is going to be, what is that? A, which is going to be A. 18, can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can factor out a 2, right? 2x to the 4th minus 17x squared plus 8. Alright, is this how many terms? 3 terms. Is this going to be a equals 1, a greater than 1, or u sub? Definitely a u substitution. So, u is going to equals 2x squared, 2u squared, minus 17u plus 8. Okay, so is this an a greater than 1 or a equals to 1? Definitely an a is greater than 1. Because look, the a value is 2, which is bigger than 1. So that means you guys got to do an x method along with your grouping. 16, negative 17, so let's think of factors of 16 that will, when we add them together, it gives us negative 17. So it clearly has got to be 1 and 16, and because it's negative 17 on the bottom, right, a negative times a negative still gives us a positive 16, but when we add it, it gives you negative 17. So we got to group this, yeah? First term, the two middle terms, and we group. We can factor out a u from those, and we can factor out a negative 2 from both. Negative because there's a negative in the front. 2u minus 1, 2u minus, wait a second, not a 2, it's an 8. So we got u minus 2 times 2u minus 1. Don't forget the 2 that we factored on the beginning. And again, we did not start off with u, so we started off with x's. So 2 times x squared minus 2, 2x squared minus 1. And I messed up again, sorry, I factored out a negative 8. So that's going to be u minus 8, and that's going to be x squared minus 8. Which is B. Which is B. Okay, almost done. 19. Okay, we can't factor out anything, so we got 2 terms, right? So sum and difference of squares or sum and difference of cubes. Well, they definitely are perfect squares, but there's a plus sign in between, and with difference of squares, it's gotta be minus, so this is not factorable. Not factorable. And 20, can we factor out something from each term? Yes, we can divide each of these by 5r. R squared plus 3r minus 10. Okay, how many terms do we got? We got 3 terms. A equals 1, A greater than 1, or U sub. Definitely an A equals 1 because there's a 1 in the front. So when we do our X method, we just gotta use the 2 side numbers. And the only combination that works is 2 and 5. One of these gotta be negative because a negative times a positive gives you a negative. But we gotta add up to 3, so it's gotta be 2 is negative. 5R, and because A is equals to 1, just use 2 side numbers, right? R minus 2, R plus 5, D. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Again, just requires you guys to practice and to use your notes to initially help you guys out, identify what factoring method you gotta do, and definitely ask for help if you guys need it. Good luck everyone. Peace.